Hi, this is Christine Lavin, and this is one of my favorite books. It's called Lucy Gayheart by Willa Cather. It was written in 1935. This was also the favorite book of a wonderful actress named Joanne Woodward. She would reread it every year, and she hoped that she would someday turn it into a film, but that's not going to happen. She's retired now, so I feel like if I can read this book and spread the book around to the right people, it'll get to a filmmaker who will see, yes, this would make a beautiful, beautiful film. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read to you, and on the side right over here, I'm actually going to have the words that I've read, so that if you prefer, you can just read it yourself. You can turn the volume off. And I'm going to read the first few chapters starting now. Lucy Gayheart, Book 1, Chapter 1. In Haverford-on-the-Platte, the townspeople still talk of Lucy Gayheart. They do not talk of her a great deal, to be sure. Life goes on, and we live in the present. But when they do mention her name, it is with a gentle glow in the face or the voice, a confidential glance which says, yes, you remember too. They still see her as a slight figure always in motion, dancing or skating, or walking swiftly with intense direction, like a bird flying home. When there is a heavy snowfall, the older people look out of their windows and remember how Lucy used to come darting through just such storms, her muff against her cheek, not shrinking, but giving her body to the wind as if she were catching step with it. And in the heat of summer, she came just as swiftly down the long shaded sidewalks and across the open squares, blistering in the sun. In the breathless glare of August noons, when the horses hung their heads and the workmen took it slow, she never took it slow. Cold, she used to say, made her feel more alive. Heat must have had the same effect. The Gayhearts lived at the west edge of Haverford, half a mile from Main Street. People said, out to the Gayhearts, and thought it rather a long walk in summer, but Lucy covered the distance a dozen times a day, covered it quickly with that walk so peculiarly her own, like an expression of irrepressible lightheartedness. When the old women at work in their gardens caught sight of her in the distance, a mere white figure under the flickering shade of the early summer trees, they always knew it was her by the way she moved. On she came, past hedges and lilac bushes and woolly green grape arbors and rows of jonquils, and one knew she was delighted with everything, with her summer clothes and the air and the sun and the blossoming world. There was something in her nature that was like her movements, something direct and unhesitating and joyous, and in her golden brown eyes. They were not gentle brown eyes, but flashed with gold sparks, like that Colorado stone we call the tiger eye. Her skin was rather dark, and the color of her lips and cheeks was like the red of dark peonies, deep, velvety. Her mouth was so warm and impulsive that every shadow of feeling made a change in it. Photographs of Lucy mean nothing to her old friends. It was her gaiety and grace they loved. Life seemed to lie very near the surface in her. She had that singular brightness of young beauty flower gardens have it for the first few hours after sunrise. We missed Lucy in Haverford when she went away to Chicago to study music. She was 18 years old then, talented, but too careless and lighthearted to take herself very seriously. She never dreamed of a career. She thought of music as a natural form of pleasure and as a means of earning money to help her father when she came home. Her father, Jacob Gayheart, led the town band and gave lessons on the clarinet, flute, and violin at the back of his watch repairing shop. Lucy had given piano lessons to beginners ever since she was in the 10th grade. Children liked her because she never treated them like children. They tried to please her, especially the little boys. Though Jacob Gayheart was a good watchmaker, he wasn't a good manager. Born of Bavarian parents in the German colony of Belleville, Illinois, he had learned his trade under his father. He came to Haverford young and married an American wife who brought him a half section of good farmland. After her death, he borrowed money on this farm to buy another, and now they were both mortgaged. That troubled his older daughter, Pauline. But it did not trouble Mr. Gayheart. He took more pains to make the band boys practice than he did to keep up his interest payments. He was a town character, of course, and people joked about him, though they were proud of their band. Mr. Gayheart looked like an old daguerreotype of a minor German poet. He wore a mustache and goatee and had a fine sweep of dark hair above his forehead, just a little gray at the sides. His intelligent, lazy hazel eyes seemed to say, "But it's a very pleasant world. Why bother?" He managed to enjoy every day from start to finish. He got up early in the morning and worked for an hour in his flower garden. Then he took his bath and dressed for the day, selecting his shirt and necktie as carefully as if he were going to pay a visit. After breakfast, he lit a good cigar and walked into town, never missing the flavor of his tobacco for a moment. Usually, he put a flower in his coat before he left home. No one ever got more satisfaction out of good health and simple pleasures and a blue and gold band uniform than Jacob Gayheart. He was probably the happiest man in Haverford. Chapter 2 of Lucy Gayheart. It was the end of the Christmas holidays, the Christmas of 1901, Lucy's third winter in Chicago. She was spending her vacation at home. There had been good skating all through Christmas week, and she had made the most of it. Even on her last afternoon, when she should have been packing, she was out with a party of Haverford boys and girls skating on the long stretch of ice north of Duck Island. This island, nearly half a mile in length, split the river in two, or rather, it split a shallow arm off the river. The Platte River proper was on the south side of this island, and it seldom froze over, but the shallow stream between the island and the north shore froze deep and made smooth ice. This was before the days of irrigation from the Platte. It was then a formidable river in flood time. During the spring freshets, it sometimes cut out a new channel in the soft farmland along its banks and changed its bed altogether. At about 4 o'clock on this December afternoon, a light sleigh with bells and buffalo robes and a good horse came rapidly along the road from town and turned at Benson's Corner into the skating place. A tall young man sprang out, tied his horse to the hitch bar where a row of sleighs already stood, and hurried to the shore with his skating shoes in his hand. As he put them on, he scanned the company moving over the ice. It was not hard to pick out the figure he was looking for. 6 of the strongest skaters had left the others behind and were going against the wind toward the end of the island. 2 were in advance of the rest, Jim Hardwick and Lucy Gayheart. He knew her by her brown squirrel jacket and fur cap, and by her easy stroke. The 2 ends of a long crimson scarf were floating on the wind behind her, like 2 slender crimson wings. Harry Gordon struck out across the ice to overtake her. He too was a fine skater, a big fellow, the heavyweight boxer type, and as light on his feet as a boxer. Nevertheless, he was a trifle winded when he passed the group of 4 and shot alongside Jim Hardwick. "Jim," he called, "will you give me a turn with Lucy before the sun goes down?" "Sure, Harry. I was only keeping her out of mischief for you." The lad fell back. Haverford boys gave way to Harry Gordon good-naturedly. He was the rich young man of the town, and he was not arrogant or overbearing. He was known as a good fellow, rather hard in business, but liberal with the ball team and the band. Public-spirited, people said. "Why, Harry, you said you weren't coming," Lucy exclaimed as she took his arm. Didn't think I could? I did, though. Drove Flicker into a lather getting out here after the director's meeting. This is the best part of the afternoon. Anyway, come along. They crossed hands and went straight ahead in two-step time. The sun was dropping low in the south, and all the flat snow-covered country, as far as the eye could see, was beginning to glow with a rose-colored light, which presently would deepen to orange and flame. The black tangle of willows on the island made a thicket like a thorn hedge, and the knotty, twisted, slow-growing scrub oaks with flat tops took on a bronze glimmer in that intense oblique light, which seemed to be setting them on fire. As the sun declined, the wind grew sharper. They had left the skating party far behind. Shan't we turn? Lucy gasped presently. Not yet. I want to get into that sheltered fork of the island. I have some Scotch whiskey in my pocket. That will warm you up. How nice! I'm getting a little tired. I've been out a long while. The end of the island forked like a fish's tail. When they had rounded one of these points, Harry swung her into the shore. They sat down on a bleached cotton wood log, where the black willow thicket behind them made a screen. The interlacing twigs threw off red light like incandescent wires, and the snow underneath was rose color. Harry poured Lucy some whiskey in the metal cup that screwed over the stopper. He himself drank from the flask. The round red sun was falling like a heavy weight. It touched the horizon line and sent quivering fans of red and gold over the wide country. For a moment, Lucy and Harry Gordon were sitting in a stream of blinding light. It burned on their skates and on the flask and the metal cup. Their faces became so brilliant that they looked at each other and laughed. In an instant, the light was gone. The frozen stream and the snow-masked prairie land became violet under the blue-green sky. Wherever one looked, there was nothing but flat country and low hills, all violet and gray. Lucy gave a long sigh. Gordon lifted her from the log, and they started back, with the wind behind them. They found the river empty, a lonely stretch of blue-gray ice. All the skaters had gone. Harry knew by her stroke that Lucy was tired. She had been out a long while before he came, and she had made a special effort to skate with him. He was sorry and pleased. He guided her into the shore at some distance from his sleigh, knelt down and took off her skating shoes, changed his own, and with a sudden movement swung her up in his arms and carried her over the trampled snow to his cutter. As he tucked her under the buffalo robes, she thanked him. The wind seems to have made me very sleepy, Harry. I'm afraid I won't do much packing tonight. No matter, there's tomorrow. And it was a good skate. On the drive home, Gordon let his sleigh bells, very musical bells, he had got them to please Lucy, do most of the talking. He knew when to be quiet. Lucy felt drowsy and dreamy, glad to be warm. The sleigh was such a tiny moving spot on that still white country settling into shadow and silence. Suddenly, Lucy started and struggled under the tight blankets. In the darkening sky, she had seen the first star come out. It brought her heart into her throat. That point of silver light spoke to her like a signal, released another kind of life and feeling which did not belong here. It overpowered her. With a mere thought, she had reached that star and it had answered. Recognition had flashed between. Something new, then, in the unknowing waste. Something had always known, forever. That joy of saluting what is far above one was an eternal thing, not merely something that had happened to her ignorance and her foolish heart. The flash of understanding lasted but a moment. Then everything was confused again. Lucy shut her eyes and leaned on Harry's shoulder to escape from what she had gone so far to snatch. It was too bright and too sharp. It hurt and made one feel small and lost.